In this video, we will install a new library for our client so that we can do the authentication. You must be wondering, why not simply use the Axios call? The only reason why we need help from a third-party library is because of storing the token in the browser, which is in local storage or cookies. By using the library, we don't have to manually store it by ourselves. We let the library handle the dirty work for us. So let's install the library. Go to your editor, and you want to go to your client, cancel it, and then you want to npm install. Make sure you are under client folder, and then Nux.js and Auth --save. Once installed, let's configure it in our nux.config.js. So let's go to nux.config, and then you want to go to this modules, and you want to add a new modules here, which will be Auth. And after that, we have to configure the proxy, which is here, and then API URL, and then you have to add comma after this. We have to set the proxy because or else the library will call the current port, which will be like this, localhost 9000 instead of 3000. Hence why we have to use proxy API URL, because for Auth it will call the 9000 port instead of 3000. So let's configure the last part. So right below this bill, add a comma, and then Auth strategies local endpoints login property name token, and then logout. Let's go to Chrome to check the library. So go to Chrome and type auth nux, and you can click get start and you can check out the resources. And for now we did all of this thing, middleware, schemes, provider, and then we are getting local because we are using local. We can use multiple strategies like local authentication or OAuth authentication like Facebook or Google login. So you can see the providers here, they are Facebook, they are GitHub, and Google. For us, we are using local. So for endpoints, you have to specify the endpoints like this. But if you don't supply any routes to the login or logout, then by default it will use API auth login or API auth logout. But for us, we did not put anything. Let's go back to editor, and we did not supply anything. By default, we use API auth login or API auth logout, which what are we using right now in the server. That's why I don't want to put anything here. So you can follow the example here. And if you specifically want a different name, then you can change the naming. Like you can add the URL, you can change to your API URL. For a property name, why do we name it a token? So technically you have to supply a token. In our case, we are responding with a token from our login API. The name has to be the same or else it won't work, because we need the token to store in the Vuex, which you will learn later, and local storage, and as well as cookies. So how does this library work in general? So when we click login, it will trigger the login endpoint, which is this part. We're gonna put this in method later, and if you supply the data with the email or password, username or password, when we click login, it will trigger the login endpoint. So when we call this functions, it will actually trigger our API auth login URL, and then you have to pass in the data of obviously like email and password, and then the login will return a token, which means it is successful. And then our library will store that token in local storage and cookies. After we get the token, it will trigger another API, which will be this API, to take the user's object and store it in the local storage. But why do I explain the login? Since we're doing a sign up. Because when you sign up, you want to redirect the user to a specific page like homepage, and you want to log in the user immediately, right? Because that's how it works. Because majority of the website is when you sign up, it will automatically log you into the website. So we have to use login to log in the user into the website after the sign up is done. Let's see the illustration to understand it deeper. So let's understand how the auth library works. First, say sign up with the data like say and then email and password. And then after that, we hit the API auth sign up. And if it's successful, we want to respond back with a success, which is true, and a token as well. And then we want to trigger the library, and the library will trigger the endpoints and as well as another endpoint which is API of user once it triggers the login. And then it will store the token and the user's object in the local storage as well as Vuex. This is how it works in general by using the Auth library. That's it. But how about login later on when we actually really log in? It is similar like this, except we don't have to call Axios call to sign up. We don't have to sign up the user. This is how the login works. User login, enter email and password, and then it will trigger the API of login, which using the library, Auth library, and as well as it will trigger API of user after that, and then it will store the token and the user's object in local storage and Vuex. That's it. It is very simple. Let's implement this. So we already learned what is the library about and how it works. So let's go implement it. Go to signup.view, and underneath here, you want to create a method. But before that, we want to have a data so that we can grab the email, the name, and the password. So we're going to return name and then email and then password. And then let's map this to the corresponding input. So let's go to our name and add a V model in here, which should be name. Copy this. Let's go to email and then change this to email. And then go to password and type the same thing and change this to password. So now let's implement our method. So here we want to call it a sing on sign up. And then in here we want to do try and catch. So try and catch console log error. And in here we want to do let data equals to name this.name, because we want to get the model, which is name, email, and password. So it will be email, this.email, and then password, which will be this.password. And after that, we want to trigger the Auth API. And then we want to trigger the API of sign up. So let response equals to await this, because we are not in async data. So this Axios, and then post, which will be API of sign up, and supply the data here. And we just want to console log the response. And we want to check the response by typing if response.success. If it's true, then only log in the user. So this of login with local, and then you want to supply the data, which will be email, because user will be login with email and password. So this.email, and then password, which will be this.password. And finally, once the user log in, we want to redirect the user to the home page. So this.router.push, which will go to the home page. So let's run our app by typing port 9000 npm run dev. We're gonna get an error, so let's check what the error is about. Enable Vuex store by creating store index.js. In order for our Auth library to work properly, you have to enable a Vuex store. To enable Vuex store, you gotta create a new file and name it index.js. So there's a folder in here called store, and create a new file and name it index.js. By creating the index.js file, we have enabled the Vuex store. In a nutshell, Vuex is a state management. We only need Vuex if many components interact with the same state. In our case, the reason why the Auth is using Vuex is because we need the user's object whichever we go, in navbar, maybe in a profile, hence why we need the Vuex. We will use Vuex heavily when dealing with add to cart feature. You will learn more in detail about Vuex and in later sections, so don't worry. So let's go back to our signup.view, and the logic of the method is quite simple. First, we gather the data from the V models like name, email, and password. And then we pass it to Axios to sign up the user. If the response is success, which is true, then we want to trigger the auth library. You can access auth objects once we have configured properly. So we have configured properly, that's why we can access this.auth. Then the auth library will trigger the login and by sending the email and password. If the login is successful, then the login API will return a token, and then auth library will store the token in local storage and cookies. And after that, it will hit another API, which is the API of user, to retrieve the user's object and store it in the local storage and cookie as well. Then finally, we redirect the user to a home page. So now let's start our app again. This time it will work. There we have it, because we have enabled our Vuex store. So now let's go to our Chrome, and you have to install something on your Chrome. So it calls Vue.js DevTools. So click this, and you're gonna make sure that you add it to your Chrome extension. So by refreshing this page, you can right click and click inspect, and after install, you should get this Vue tab. So if you click this, you can see the state. So let's go to sign up. But we forgot to do one more thing. Let's go back to our editor, and let's add this sign up method to our button, which will be the create your Amazon button. So add click equals to on sign up. So let's go back and let's go and add a new user. So let's name it Jordan at gmail.com abc123. So if you create your Amazon account, it redirects us back to this page, which is successful. So if you check your state, let's refresh the state, you're gonna get an auth object that will say login false. But if you refresh this, and then it's changed back to login true and users object, which is the data, Jordan, and Gmail, and so on. So we can use this users object. But if you go to application, click application, and let's make this bigger, and if you click local storage, and as you can see there's a local, which is the token, and then if you go to session storage, there's nothing here, and let's go to cookies. Apparently the library stores the token in the cookies and as well as the local storage, while it stores the user's object on the Vuex. So now it works. In the next video, we will change this hello sign in to our current user we just log in. I'll see you guys in the next video.